This is a story of how getting fired from Panera set me up to be a six-figure CEO by age 23. For the longest time, I was embarrassed to tell this story because it ended up in me being super emotional. However, I was like, you know what? F it. I need to tell this story because I want to inspire all of you about the possibilities. Because when something hard happens, you can choose to do something about it. You can take massive action, and when you do that, a lot of beauty lies on the other side of that. So what happened was, this was actually during COVID. During 2020, I was a college student, and so I had bills to pay. I had to pay my rent, I had to pay my food, and the whole world was going crazy. And what happened was I actually decided to invest $10,000 in Tony Robbins' Business Mastery during COVID. Why? Because during the lockdown, I just really awoken to my entrepreneurial spirit, and I just knew that if I challenged myself to invest in this conference, I was paying $725 a month. I knew that it would make me into a very strong entrepreneur because it activated the resourceful part of my brain. And so I had to do crazy things to earn the money. I was selling my blood plasma, I was a test subject in MRI studies, and I also decided to work at Panera as a barista. And so what I would do, it wasn't this Panera, it was the one by Indiana University. And what I would do is, I didn't own a car, and the buses didn't run at 6 a.m. and that's when my shift started. So every day I would walk over a mile in the cold to work. This was during the winter months, starting in October. Okay, so I'm in the superhuman mode, right? And I hit this interesting point where there starts to become a rising action in the story. And it all started with me listening to a Lewis House podcast. And in the podcast, they were talking about fasting. And when you fast, they said that your body puts less energy towards digesting and more energy goes towards your brain. And I'm just like, oh, that's really interesting. Maybe one day I will decide to fast. And I don't know what caused me to do it, but I just, for some reason, didn't really have the desire to eat, and that caused me to not want to sleep, because when you fast, you start to decalcify your pineal gland, and so that actually releases natural DMT, which is a psychedelic drug. And so it really was like a psychedelic experience, and I really couldn't sleep because reality was so enhanced. And I swear I didn't take any drugs. I didn't even drink alcohol at the time. I don't drink alcohol right now. But that's what happened. And so after I started to do that, within the next 3 to 5 days, I started to become more and more awake, if you will. So this is where the story gets interesting. So I had 3 managers at the time at Panera. So I'm going to give them fake names. We have Sabrina. She was the nice manager. We have Janet. She was a bit cranky, not the nicest. And then we had Tim. He wasn't always there, but he just came like once a week just to check in on things. So he was like the bigger manager. And so on day 1 of me being awake, Janet, the angry manager, the mean manager, she told me to actually take out my headphones because I was always listening to podcasts, and she was just like, like take them out. She said it in a really mean way, but I get it. Like on the job, I probably should be like attentive to my surrounding. And so I took out my headphones and I started really to see my coworkers, and they were very zombie-like, because in the back room, you can't see it here. In the back room, there's like all these different stations to make like sandwiches, the salads, the coffee, the pastries. You have like people by the drive-through. And so I just noticed like everyone was very zombie-like. They weren't really letting their true personalities shine. And so I was like, okay, how can I change this? And so I started to tap into my ability to create a different reality. And so all I did was, I actually had I don't even know why I had my speaker at the time, but I had my speaker in my backpack, in my school backpack. And so I started playing like really good music. Now, the people who were working there, they were like older women. So I started playing like the Beatles and the Bee Gees because I saw that they would like it. And like these women, like, like they started to become like in a better mood. They were like dancing a little bit. They're still getting their work done, but like, I'm telling you, like all their souls started radiating, and it was like a domino effect because they were like in this good vibe, and then they were giving good customer service. I noticed I even had my headphones on to listen to the drive-through, and they were like more happy to the customers, and there was better connections being made among the employees, and thus they were delivering better. It was a better business, and everyone just looked, and they were just like super friendly. Everyone looked really good. And so everyone around me also started to notice me. I think there was like a light that started glowing around me. Like this one gentleman who worked, he was an older man. He was like one of my coworkers. He was like, "Oh my God, like, you look so good. You look like you don't even need any sugar. Like you just look amazing. Like your persona, your aura." And I was like, "Thank you." And that one thing I did just started to change reality. And then it was beautiful. But then Tim, the bigger manager, he came up to me and he was like, "We're trying to run a business. You need to turn that off." And so I turned it off. I listened to him, but then everyone, as I did that, they started to become zombie-like again. And I was like, "Oh, wow." And then the next day, so this is day 2 of the awakening, I started to wake up every more. And when you awaken, you start to see the ugly in things as well. And so I started to see like, yes, the zombie likeness in people, but I also noticed that food was getting wasted. So there was like avocados that were all rotten and they just threw them away. There was chicken that was getting wasted. They were just leaving the water running and they were like wasting all this paper. And at the time, they were laying off a lot of people because it was during COVID and they couldn't afford to keep people there. And so Tim happened to be there again. And I was just like, hey, Tim, you mentioned that you're trying to run a business. And so, like, I want to bring up the music again. I was trying to explain to him that the music was leading to better customer service, thus better business. But he was like, he was totally denying it. Like, I remember I was trying to tell him stuff and at my little barista station, like an order came in and he didn't know what to say at one point. And he was like, an order came in for you to kind of like, make up for the time. But then I started to tell him once I took that order, I started to tell him like, like you're laying off all these people, you're wasting all this food. If we stopped wasting this food, if we were more conscious, I use the word conscious. I said, if we're more conscious, then we can run a better business. And he really didn't like that. Like it was kind of like man ego got in the way. He didn't yell at me or anything, but I could tell like that led to a problem. And he went to go talk to the other two managers, Sabrina and Janet. Those are their made up names. And then Sabrina came to me and she was like, "Oh, did you say something bad to Tim?" And I was like, "No," like, and I just explained to her like what I actually did. And then she nodded, like, and she was actually like really supportive about it because she has like a really big heart, that manager. So then day three rolls around, and I guess I said something to cause everyone to need to take a training on the iPads because they said something like, "Oh, like we need to like learn better customer service, or everyone needs to take turns like taking this training on the iPads in the lobby." And so I thought that was interesting. And there was I when it was my turn to take the training on the iPad, there was all like this it was like the one made by Panera, but there was all these different modules and lessons, and one of them was all about communication. And they were saying how like, we want to be respectful to everyone, like we don't want to have violent communication with our coworkers because, they said it's actually like death by a thousand cuts. Your words can be violent and it's like one cut, it's like all these paper cuts, and that can cause a lot of harm to someone, especially to their mentality. And it's so interesting because the virtual class I was taking online after I was finished working from Panera, the online class through my university, it was an intensive writing class, but it was all about domestic violence. And so those two synchronicities, I was just like, huh. And so I started to open up all these wounds that I had like from my childhood. And I actually started to have like a dark night of the soul. And I started seeing these things because it actually opened up wounds for me because when I was younger, I was actually communicated to very violently. Like I was, emotionally, mentally, verbally, a little bit physically. And so I started to like open up those wounds and I started to like literally see things like later that night. And I think it actually like alarmed my family because I guess I was sending these sporadic text messages and I think I told them like, yeah, I haven't eaten or slept in like 3 days, and that really alarmed them. And then I didn't sleep that entire night at all. This was like going on to the fourth day. And I tried to call off work because that was like during finals week. And Sabrina answered and she was like, "Yeah, that's fine. You could take off work. I understand. Like, like you need to take care of your health and take care of your finals. That's fine." I'm like, "Great. Thank you. Thank you, Sabrina, for having my best interest." And she was like, "Yeah, of course I try." And so she actually called back like 10 minutes later and she was like, "Yeah, like, Janet actually said, no, that's not cool. This is too short of a notice. So if you can't come in today, we actually like, need to let you go." And I was like, and she said like, "Oh, like, is there another reason why you don't want to come in? Like maybe something to do with like Tim, the other manager." And I don't know where it came from, but I just said like, like Janet kind of reminds me of my mother. And this is me opening up my child wounds. And I love my mom, by the way. But she did. And actually another YouTuber talked about how like Aaron Dowdy, he talked about when he worked at another job that he started attracting the same personality to him because he didn't heal from his stepmom when he was younger. So he kept attracting like that same personality in girlfriends and bosses. And I was like, "Oh, Janet reminds me of my mom." And then it was so interesting. Sabrina was like, "Yeah, like kiddo, I actually agree with you. She actually reminds me of my mom too." And I was like, "That's crazy." And Janet, my mom, like these types of people, like they're beautiful, but it's just like they were carrying like this kind of baggage on them, and they were very like aggressive in their communication. And naturally, like they're beautiful souls, but just like life took a toll on them. And so, when I told Sabrina that, she was like, "Yeah, like I don't think it's a good idea that you come in anymore just because of the other day with Tim and because of you calling off and because of even what you're sharing with me right now, which I won't tell anyone, but I think it's better if you just focus on school, if you just focus on your health." And I actually got super emotional. And I usually don't get really emotional and I panicked a bit because I had to still pay my bills. I was paying off Tony Robbins, and she actually sent me this text right here, which was really kind of her to send, and it was kind of like a bright ray of sunshine amongst dark clouds. But after that, reality got really heavy, and I was in this really dark place. And when I was in this really dark place, I just really needed to express myself because my whole life I've been really creative, but I haven't been expressing myself. I haven't been saying how I actually feel. I haven't been expressing myself creatively. And so what I did is I started to do that. It was like I was like a bottle of like soda, and then it's like you shake it and it needs to explode. So it's like all this shit was shaking me, and I was like, I need to express. So it was like, and so what did I do after that? I took this really like darker photo. I know it's a little bit triggering, but I took this photo and after that, I also, it was like a beautiful ray of creativity. I actually filmed a music video on a skateboard. It was like a fun, cute, really awesome music video. You can actually check it out. I posted it on my YouTube channel. And during the day, as I was filming that video, it just came to me, Ari the creator, Ari the creator. That's who I am. And then the logo came to me because I started seeing reality as a beautiful blend of spirituality, creativity, and one other thing, which I can't remember this. Oh, science. That's what it was. Spirituality, creativity, and science. That's how I started to see reality, and that became my logo. And it was crazy because that day it was December in Indiana, but that day it was like 67 degrees. I kid you not. It was really warm. And so I went on to start my YouTube channel and my business. And I didn't really know what I was doing. I just knew like, okay, this is going to be a personal brand. I don't really know what it's going to look like, but it's okay. I'm going to take messy steps because I know that this is what I'm supposed to do. And by this point, my family is really freaked out still. I guess I started sending more sporadic text messages because that's just how my brain was just moving so fast. And so the way I was communicating was like, which is usually not like me. And so I actually told my mom, why I was doing this. I told her, I'm actually saving up for Tony Robbins Business Mastery and I've been working really hard to save the money. And to my surprise, she was super supportive about it. Up until that point, I didn't tell her about Tony Robbins and I made this big investment. So I had like a lone wolf mentality. And to my surprise, she supported me and she was like, you know what, yeah, like me and your stepdad, like we can help you, we can send you money. Like we're happy to do that. Like we just want you to be okay. And that was really healing for me because part of what opened up the wounds was like my past relationship with my mother. And so that's a good message for all of you. When you stop taking on that lone wolf mentality, you'd be surprised at the abundance and the support that comes your way. And so, yeah, again, this was the beginning of December. I didn't know what I was going to do to start my YouTube channel and my business, but I set a deadline for January 1st. I was like, you know what? I'm going to figure it out. Even when I had finals for college, it was finals week. I had to finish my finals. I actually didn't finish all my classes. And so some of them I got an extension during COVID. So that to me, that was a failure, but um, it's good everyone to sometimes you're gonna fail throughout the journey, but it's okay. Like don't beat yourself up for it. I was like, you know what, like and they let me finish the classes next semester, but I actually had one professor write me like a letter that said like I can extend my classes. And so my goal was to launch my YouTube channel and my business by January 1st. Didn't really know what it was gonna look like, but I launched just a web page. Wasn't selling anything, but I just launched a web page and I was just there's a few different sections and I'll list them right here because I can't remember them off the top of my head. It was a website with like these different sections, but the main one was Ari the artist. And so I just expressed myself throughout my life. I had all these different artworks to express each chapter of my life because I told you I wasn't fully expressing myself. And so I shared a video of like a just this video that reminded me of my childhood and my Mexican heritage. Actually, my friend showed it to me on YouTube, and I just really spiritually connected with that video. So I shared that video. I explained what the first chapter of my life was like. I explained the next chapter where I went into my hermit phase. I talked a little bit about why I went into my hermit phase was because of some of the violence I was experiencing. I also shared some poems that I wrote, and I shared at an event. You can actually pause and read them. These are actually really good poems, but there was one line in there that I wrote. I wrote this poem during my sophomore year of college. I said, where are you going? Where have you been? Your stories are not meant to stay bottled in. And so that line actually encouraged me to share this whole page because I needed to tell my story. And I shared those poems my sophomore year at an event where people who experienced violence were supposed to feel seen and heard. And so they like set up a stage and they were like, yeah, like we're gonna let you express yourself so that you feel seen and heard. But after, I did this event, a lot of my friends were there and there was this one organization at school that I really connected with. Like, no one said anything to me after I vulnerably went on stage and shared these poems. Like, no one thanked me for my performance. No one said anything. And so I actually felt really unseen and unheard. I was like, these are really good poems. Like, why didn't anyone say anything? And so that had a toll on me. And so it felt really good to share it on this website. I shared a video I made about Australia because I lived in Australia right after that event, that poetry event. I had a spiritual awakening there. I shared a drawing I drew a picture of me working at Panera. It really showed that I was saving up for my future. I wasn't spending money on parties or going out buying clothes, things I didn't need. I shared that Dark Night of the Soul photo, and then I shared the new skateboard video, which you should you should actually check out because it's really good. And so from there, yeah, I mean, I didn't know what I was doing. I just continued on with my YouTube channel and my business. I was working on that from my college apartment. I was also working to graduate on time, so I was trying to balance that with school, which was difficult. I mostly had to, focus on graduating. But even when I launched my brand, I still didn't fully feel seen and heard. I didn't get the attention that I wanted on my YouTube channel. I think even after the 4 months, I had like maybe 16 subscribers, not many views on my videos that I shared. And so that's a good message for all of you. Sometimes you may launch something and it's not that we want to get views for like vanity's sake, but we want to spread our message. We want to feel seen. We want to impact people. And so I experienced that too when I launched, and I want you to know that you're not alone in that. And yeah, when that happened, because remember I launched January 1st, and I was hoping to get all this attention, not like for me, but I was, like there was good takeaway messages in that website that I shared. I even had some blogs on there and some other like good material. And so when I didn't get the attention, the traction that I wanted from the get-go, it's like a cloud of darkness came back, and I did feel alone. And it was actually the day that the Capitol got attacked. That was January 6th of 2021. Remember the Capitol building got attacked? I think there was just a low energy across the whole United States. And I felt that. I felt this really just dark energy that day. And I actually called two of my friends who, I still love. I called two of them, and I actually kind of lashed out on them because of just things that they said in the past, things that weren't addressed. I got a little bit angry that things went a certain way or that they didn't see or hear me when I tried to tell them something. And so I actually like just lashed out on them. It was like all this energy just it's kind of like I threw up, like it's like you're holding in all this gross stuff and you gotta like let it out. And I kind of like threw up on them, if you will. But I lashed on two friends, and this is how you really know who your true friends are. Um, one of them like later on wholly forgave me, but the other one like didn't even talk to me since, which I don't like blame her for. I said some ugly things. But that's a good message for all of you because maybe even after you launch your YouTube channel and your business, maybe some people stop talking to you, or maybe you've done something to broke rapport with a friend, and just know that relationships aren't forever, and those who are meant to stick around will. And yeah, I mean, I take full responsibility for that. I probably said some things that I shouldn't have. But I mean, that's what got me to where I am now. So I want to share that with you because this journey wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. I didn't launch this channel and get all the leads and sales for my business that I wanted to. That's what I'm doing now. By the way, I use this channel to get leads and sales for my business so I can serve people on a higher level. And I'm still working to grow. And I'm still working to grow my audience base so that I can reach more people. But I just want you to see that all of this messy stuff led me to where I am now. Once I graduated, long story short, I moved back in with my mom, and it took me about 2 years to really get my YouTube channel and my business off the ground to the point where I could live comfortably in San Diego. I built this up to over a six-figure business. Now it's over 150K that I made with this, and I just want you to see what's possible with this. And when I moved here, all this beautiful stuff started to happen. I got bigger opportunities. Like I interviewed like Gary Vee, Ty Lopez, what else? Like I'm now doing like in-person podcasts. I'm working with like really great YouTube channels, people with over 1 million subscribers, close to 1 million subscribers, because the way that I teach, I don't teach like YouTube monetization in the traditional sense. I teach people, okay, how can we serve people on a higher level beyond just YouTube? How can you build a powerful and strong brand and not get too lost in the metrics? Because when you're just lost in the numbers, then it's like you lose your true essence. You're not connected to your heart. And even if only 2 to 3 people show up to watch your video, it's like they don't fully get the brand message. They're not fully impacted by you. So yeah, that's how I got to the point where I'm at now, where now I'm a mentor. I help people one-on-one. I run my own group where I'm a mentor for all these people. And I also do, done for you services for people who need like their website built, their funnel built, people who need help with making their content, editing, uploading, scripting, all of that. And so the big takeaway is that when something hard happens, you have no idea what lies on the other side of that when you choose to take massive action. All these difficult things, even the stuff I went through in my childhood, in college, even the hardship that I went through trying to build up this business, because it wasn't always easy. it all propelled me. All the all the hard stuff served as fuel. It served as fuel, and it really drove me to get to this point where I'm at now. And I wouldn't go back and change a thing. So if I were you, I just recommend that you share your stories and just remember that vulnerability is a strength. And just remember to come from that heart of service and just see the bigger mission and purpose, and you'll get to where you want to be. So I hope you found this valuable. I hope you found this inspirational. I would love to hear your comments down below, and I'd love to hear your story as well. You can give me the shorter version here in the YouTube comments. I'd love to hear it. But yeah, thank you everyone for watching, and I'll see you for the next one.